Mukhlis, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing good too. I'm glad you're here. Mukhlis 𝐶𝐨𝐧'𝐭, MBA, CPhD, PhDR, is Assistant Dean of Health Sciences, Tarrant County College, Fort Worth, Texas. He has served in academia for over a decade, bringing invaluable experience to instruction, curriculum development, student success and retention, administration, and operations. Mr. 𝐶𝐨𝐧'𝐭 strongly believes in the capacity of education to empower individuals to advance societal social mobility. He is a staunch advocate for inclusive practices to support an institution's mission and the vision to foster an innovative environment. Inclusion is a culture in which individuals feel valued and respected and possess a sense of belonging in any setting. Cultivating a practice of inclusion in the workplace is fundamental to achieving job productivity and performance. Impressive. Mukhlis, tell us about your background. What are all of those different letters mean? I think we know what an MBA is, but what's CPhD and PhDR?
CPhD stands for Certified Pharmacy Technician, which is a national certification across the United States. PhDR, it is pharmacy, stands for Pharmacy Technician registered with Texas State Board of Pharmacy.
I see. And you studied pharmacy.
That is correct. I do have a master's degree in pharmacy from Bulgaria. I graduated in 1999.
In 1999. And then you came here, I understand, to further pursue education in pharmacy.
That is correct. The original goal, of course, was to continue with my doctorate degree, but things change in life. Did not work out the way how I wanted to be, and higher education had a call for me, and I shifted gears.
So you became a teacher, instructor, and educator in higher education.
Yes, sir. Since 2003, I am a graduate of a pharmacy tech program from Houston Community College, Coleman College. In 2003, I was asked to join that program as a part-time lab assistant. In spring of 2005, I was asked to teach as an adjunct. And we all know who are in higher ed, who are faculty or continue to teach. Teaching requires a completely different mindset. I thought I did not have it in me, but when I said yes, and the first day, I still remember when I stood in front of the classroom with student, it just came natural to me. And in 2008, a full-time faculty position came available. I applied for it, and since then, I've been in higher ed and moving up the chain.
Now this is interesting. Of course, we use coded words sometimes to describe something. So we say over a decade. Well, what's over a decade? How many years have you been in higher education?
Pretty much since 2003 to 2008, that's part-time. And then from 2008 until now, full-time. So you're talking roughly a little bit over 15 years.
So you've done a lot in 15 years. You've been a classroom instructor. And then you've had other positions within higher education before becoming Assistant Dean of Health Sciences.
That is correct. After being a full-time faculty member, I was appointed an interim program director for the pharmacy tech. After that, I was elected to be the faculty senate president for Houston Community College. After that, I was appointed the first inclusion fellow to work with HR. To examine inclusive practices and recommend a plan to become more inclusive. Afterward, I was appointed an interim dean for Earth, Life, and Natural Sciences. And keep in mind, this is a district-wide position. Of course, COVID hit. Things changed very quickly, dramatically, and we had to adapt very quick. Afterward, I went back to my role as a full-time faculty member, a position an opportunity opened up at Tarrant County College in Fort Worth, Texas, and right now I'm here.
And somewhere along the line, you became a social justice advocate.
Yes,
How did
sir.
that happen?
Um, I, since the past 10 years or so, inclusion and higher education to me became relevant. And let me expand a little bit on it. Education, as you stated in my intro, education is a very important tool. I inform my student, if you receive your degree, and it doesn't matter if it's a certificate, an associate, a bachelor, wherever that is your universal tool. It doesn't matter where you at in the world, you can always rely on. One of my mentor one time told me that whoever you want to name they, or you want to label they can take away everything from you except your education or your degree. With
Hmm.
that being stated, inclusion, on the other hand, it is very important component of obtaining a degree or higher education. So
Hmm.
at least you have the ability to move freely, being included in a conversation as well as contribute to the society.
Hmm. Would your advocacy for social mobility be related at all to your personal experiences?
Yes, sir. Um, I've been, as I shared before, since 2002. I'm sorry, since 1992. I went to Bulgaria to study pharmacy. Uh, Completed my pharmacy. Right now, I am in the United States, so I have the ability to move around and utilize my degree as well as a stepping stone to be able to contribute to higher ed.
Hmm. Great. Well, it's good to have you here, and we're going to have a good time. Our topic for this evening is inclusion in the workplace, and we have 7 topics, subtopics: the concept of inclusion, sense of belonging, decision-making process, employee engagement, the value of trust, transformational leadership, psychological empowerment. So, Mukhlis, where would you like to start?
We'll start with the first concept.
Okay.
But before we start with the concept of inclusion, I just would like to start by stating the following from a personal and professional experience. What I have noticed, when a workplace is inclusive, it attracts and retains a diverse group of employees. This diversity brings with it a variety of different perspectives and ways of thinking, which can lead, of course, to more creative and innovative solution to problems. And I'm always advocating for inclusive practices. And the reason why, because inclusion can help organization measure their diversity practices. Diversity does not exist without inclusion.
All right, I'm gonna hit you with some topics here. What is
Go
your
ahead.
definition of diversity?
Diversity is making sure you bring in everybody on board. And definition of everybody can be gender, race, background, different kind of food, different kind of thinking, or anything in that nature. Now, when it comes to inclusion, yeah, it's great. You have that checklist that you have diverse group of people. But when it comes to inclusion, you want to make sure that the right people at the table. You want to make sure that wherever decision you are going to make, and if it's going to affect specific group of people, you want to have these folks on the table. So that's why the concept of inclusion really, it's about the workplace, which is the need to have inclusive environment to help employees build a connection with an organization. Now,
Now,
again,
now
from my
how does age or political diversity fit into the idea of inclusion
but see
or
that's
even diversity?
that's the unique about it. We should be able to see even different background, different age, or different political view. We should be able to sit down and have a normal human conversation without disagreeing with it.
Mhm.
Having a different perspective, having a different approach from a different political view, that gives me the opportunity to look at things from a different perspective. That things I am not seeing it from my lens, because
Mhm.
possibility I'm looking at it from a 10,000 view. Let me give you an example. Someone
Mhm.
else might be looking at it from a 5,000 view or 15,000 view. So that's why it is important to have someone from a different background as well as different perspective.
Mhm. All right. So I had asked your definition of diversity.
Yes, sir.
You spoke about it a little bit, but please elaborate on your definition of inclusion. How does inclusion look? How do you know when you have an inclusive environment?
So, as I stated earlier, creating an inclusive work environment, it is important as the rate of globalization is steadily increasing. We are witnessing slowly and gradually the world is becoming more interconnected through devices and through technology. So it is very important to implement and understand and explain why inclusion is important. Gradually and slowly, inclusion is becoming important to focus on attributing valuable information related to success within organization. Organization can be locally, can be nationally, or can be internationally. Another perspective, inclusion can be defined as follows. So here's the trick part. Is I'm going to define it two ways. It's either as a state in which individuals feel respected, feel their voices are heard, and feel a sense of belonging, and is an effort, not only a state, is an effort to ensure individual fully participate in all aspects of the operation of an organization,
Well, who is
including
responsible for ensuring you have an inclusive environment?
everybody, including the leadership team. It is incumbent upon the leadership team to ensure that the inclusive practices have been followed, supported, and fostered within the organization.
Now, should that be a cultural thing that happens on its own, or do we need regulations, rules, and procedures and other documentation to ensure there is inclusion?
You can, so if you're going to do procedures and rules, you're just locking yourself in. You only need to do really, it's just a common sense. Do we need to, let me give you an example. David has a background in education consulting. If we are meeting and the decision is going to be on consulting and education, don't you think David E. Johnson should be at the table?
You know that joke about if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
There you go. I'm going to write this down so I can use it.
Yeah, so I don't want to be on the menu, so I prefer to be
It's
at
all
the
right.
table. All right, sir. Shall we move on to your next topic, which is somewhat a part of inclusion, belonging. So you can have this so-called inclusive environment.
Yes, sir.
But whether someone feels included is contingent upon whether that person feels he or she belongs.
Well,
so how do you make a person feel that he belongs?
The way how I operate and the way how I implement these techniques with my team, one, I am constantly engaging with them, constantly reaching out to them. If it's not 3-4 times a week, possibility every single day. I let them know that they are important to me. I make sure they are valued, and I make sure that their opinion is heard. We might disagree, and I tell them it is okay. It is part of the process, but does not mean that we have to take it personal. So the way how I foster that sense of belonging is by helping them understand where I'm coming from, where others are coming from, and how they play critical role in this process. Wherever that process is, it can be developing a schedule, a program, a curriculum, or even dealing with a student.
Now, Mukhlis, you're working in higher education. You are a higher education guru, operational specialist. How do you enact, how do you create a culture of inclusion in higher education?
So that's a very good question. I am not afraid to speak up. Respectfully, of course, being respectful to other. I am not afraid to point out the exclusion that happened. I am not afraid to have the uncomfortable conversation with folks. And I always tell people it is time sometimes to have the uncomfortable conversation, as well as let's get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm sure everybody heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how you create a culture of inclusion, by pointing out, speaking the truth, and making sure everybody is aware of what's going on.
Mughals, I'm going to go somewhere else. I do a variety of things. One is coach. And I had a client, this is like one of my first clients, and we were talking about difficult conversations, okay?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And I know that there are specific procedures on having difficult conversations. There are specific, I even attended workshops on those kinds of conversations. And so I just assumed this person knew that. All right, so you use that term. When you say those difficult conversations, what is it you mean? And what is the structure of such a conversation?
So going back to your question earlier about when you create a sense of belonging, and this is
Mhm,
part of the talking point. So when you create
mhm,
a sense of belonging, you're fostering an environment where trust right now is taking a shape, where people start trusting each other and start kind of getting a little bit more comfortable. Mistakes happen. We are human, which is fine. I'm the first to apologize, the first to point out my mistake. However, when the mistakes start occurring more than once or twice or three times and start affecting the student, start affecting the program, start affecting the organization, this is where we need to sit down and just talk about it, talk about what's going on, what needs to happen. I don't go right away and just point out this is what you did, this is wrong, or this has happened. My approach is always tell me what's going on, what's happening with you. I've been noticing that you're struggling a little bit. You're not meeting what I'm asking you to do, and you're not responding right away. So can you tell me what's going on so I'm able to help you?
mhm.
Based
Now,
on
would you
that,
call out your superiors?
I'm sorry,
Would you call out your superiors?
in the right time, right place. Yes, sir.
Mhm. Um, let's go back even more. You got a
Yes, sir.
list of accomplishments, list of things that you've done, and curriculum is included in that.
Yes, sir.
You know, we live in a battlefield right now with, at least at the K-12,
Yes,
regarding
sir.
curriculum, what should be included in the curriculum. So at the higher education level, what should be included in curriculum?
So, so that is a very, very strategic question. So what needs to be included in the curriculum is about the study. What is the study of this topic, wherever is the topic? If you are focusing on government, then you should be able to develop a curriculum that cater to that topic. If you're talking about healthcare, you should be able to develop a curriculum that is geared to that specific topic. Keep in mind the curriculum needs to be inclusive. What I mean inclusive is bringing different mindset and different opinions about that specific topic. Narrow it down to um, one option or one topic. You're not helping your student. You're locking them down, and you're not giving them the opportunity for their mindset to grow and develop a different thoughts or different opinion about what's going on.
Mhm. My argument is indoctrination is what the other guy wants to teach. So, what is your view on indoctrination and diversity and inclusion? Diversity,
Um,
equity, and inclusion.
this is a very how this is very slippery slope. We have to be careful because I always defer back to the academic freedom
Mhm.
of the faculty as well as the higher ed institution. I think slowly and gradually academic freedom is fading away. It is the responsibility of all higher education institutions to say stand up and speak the truth and let them know what's going on, as well as there's another component I would like to bring to this conversation that is not being discussed as well, is the shared governance that goes hand in hand with the academic freedom for faculty member. Because I'm not alone in one classroom. I am with the group of students. There are my colleagues across the hall, as well as my peer that are helping me reach or become where I wanted to become, pretty much.
Mhm. And speaking of shared decision making or shared governance, your next topic is decision making process. So, is that what you're touching right now?
Yes, sir. I will be
Okay.
talking about the decision-making process.
Mhm.
So the decision-making process is really it is very critical and important in any organization, any complex organization that serve a large group of people. Higher education, we serve a large group of students. The focus are the student. The focus is student success. The focus is making sure the student have the best experience. So when a decision that is made by non uh, by individual who do not have the experience nor have the idea, the understanding of what's going on the ground, that can lead to a very, very troubling outcomes. So it is very important. If I'm going to make, let me give you an example. If I'm going to make a decision about a classroom, or if I want to make a decision about a curriculum, I consult with my team. I consult with the faculty who are teaching this topic. I consult with the program director who are part of this conversation. So at least I am aware, informed, and looking at my blind side. So they are the one that's going to help me uncover my blind side, so I'm able to make the proper decision with them collaboratively.
Should governors be determining curriculum?
No. That
Go
should
on.
that should be determined actually by the expert in the field.
Mm-hmm. It tied to that, employee engagement. Elaborate upon that, please.
So you've been asking me all this question. Let me ask you these two questions. How many people believe employee engagement is important, as well as how many times have you witnessed employee being optimistic and or happy because they are engaged at work?
That's very, very interesting. I am a advocate of what has been called situational leadership.
Yes, sir.
Meaning that you adjust your leadership style by the needs of the so-called follower. And the analogy I use for that is plants. If you water all plants on the same day with the same amount of water, some of them are getting too much water, some of them are getting too little water.
That is
cool. So in other words, you need to make adjustments for the so-called follower. And there are some people who want and need to be told what to do. And there are others who you just say, I need this. And they say, got it. And they'll go off and do it and come back and give you a perfect product or a perfect, perfect product of what it was that you had asked, whether it's a service or some tangible product. So my argument is that you adjust your leadership style depending on the needs of the persons who would be working with you. And so, yes, some are more engaged or engaged differently than others.
I like that. So I believe empowered employees are the one who are engaged at work.
Right.
And I'm going to connect employee engagement with the sense of belonging, which is I stated earlier. When you have employees that are engaged in the workplace, and usually they are driven and they are focused to pursue and achieve organizational excellence, and that is part of the sense of belonging. David, I don't know if I mentioned earlier or not, when you talk about employee engagement, is about bringing these people on board, helping them understand the culture of the organization, right, making them feel welcome and making them feel of a group. Believe it or not, I don't know if you know about this theory. There is the optimal distinctive theory. I believe it was introduced in 1991 by Merlin Brewer. And this optimal distinctive theory, the base of the optimal distinctive theory is on the fact that humans need to be associated with a community, which is part of the engagement that we're trying to foster, trying to empower, and trying as well to push our employee to have that sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand completely. And so that sense of belonging, the idea of engagement, fosters the type of environment that could lead to inclusion. Notice I said that could lead to inclusion because I think that the idea or the concept of inclusion is not automatic. It doesn't just happen. There has to be some. I'm sorry, say again.
It takes time. It takes progress.
It takes time and progress. Okay. I'm watching the clock. We better move on. The value of trust, my friend. The value of trust.
The value of trust. Let me start by saying distrust is often costly and corrosive, which contributes to low productivity by employee. A study done by Gallup ShareCare Well-Being Index between 2010 and 2012 found that employees who actually worked in mistrustful environment had a greater chance of developing high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and diabetes. So it's not only emotional, it's also physical and psychological impact. So it is very important for organization to support trust, and it is on the leadership team to make sure that the trust it's there. And the three element, I know you have a question for me. The three element that are important to build trust are transparency in operation, clarity in communication, and consistency in processes. Go ahead.
I'm glad you presented it that way. And then the other topics you have, another topic you have there is psychological empowerment. I'm glad you presented it that way, because one of the questions I ask is, what is the value, and to whom is the value of D, E, and I? Is it for the individual, the worker, the employee, or is it for the company, the organization? Do we have D and I because it it's an advantage for the organization, or because it's an advantage for people? And then I've read so many things that say organizations that have DEI make this much more money a year. Is that the reason we want to have DE and I?
You want to we're human. You want to have DAI so you can help your organization moving forward through the employees. Let's be clear, without employees, no organization gonna function, whether we like it or not. So the goal of bringing DAI on board or having these kind of practices or initiative, it's really to help the employee find their place in the organization, find their human connections with other, as well as serving the community, wherever that community. It can be student, it can be customer, it can be anybody.
Mm-hmm. Let me take a break here. Cassandra, any questions from our audience that we might entertain at this moment? All right, there's one. Dean, class, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. What challenges have your organizations faced in promoting inclusivity in the workplace, and how have you handled this?
So the challenges where really it's not understanding the concept of inclusivity. We focus only on diversity, and we're hoping that inclusion will stick at some point. So what I have been doing and what I have been encouraging for is constantly speaking about inclusion before diversity, constantly pointing out what's going on, what's happening, so at least people can see it, can see their blind spot. And again, it's not about attacking people. It's all about approaching it in a respectful way, making sure people understand what happened, what transpired, and point out, hey, I think we need to have so and so on the board, so because she might be able to help us in really making the right decision.
Good, good. And yeah, that's interesting. We need to have him or her or they on the board because they offer an opinion or a position that is different than all the other opinions around the table. Yeah. Cassandra, any other questions out there? If not, Mukhlis, we've talked about a lot of different things here. How about can we touch psychological empowerment really quickly?
Psychological empowerment. What is a psychological empowerment? Is really has a positive impact on employee and organization. Keep in mind that the leadership style, which is the its connection with the transformational leadership we did not cover, it really can impact the psychological empowerment of the employee. The concept of leadership is about inspiring, guiding, motivating, and empowerment. So you really need your employee to feel safe as well as to feel protected. Transformational leadership can be an important predictor of employee psychological empowerment, hence leading to a job satisfaction. We all know that creating a pleasant work environment positively increases individual attitudes and their performance, which of course results in benefiting the organization as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Sir, we've touched a lot of topics, and unfortunately we could touch only the top layers of them, and some of them deserve digger deeping, such as the psychological empowerment and transformational leadership. But we're running out of time. So if there were one thing that you would like people to take away from this, what would it be?
Be the voice of others, speak up your mind, make sure you stand your truth, and don't be afraid of having the uncomfortable conversations.
Mukhlis Tlas, MBA, CPHT, PhDR, is Assistant Dean of Health Sciences, Tarrant County College, Fort Worth, Indiana. Thank you for being our guest. I'm David Johnson, Transform Education, and kudos and thanks to my dear friend and colleague, Cassandra Williams, who is the brains behind Educational Innovations 360 Degrees. Thank you for being here with us tonight, and see you next time.